Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as yours, but hey, it's something. No major housekeeping I need to say for this episode, so let's get right into the news. First, an update from the Freedom Flotilla, because the Freedom Flotilla, for those who don't know, I mentioned this a little bit in the last video, but it was the Freedom Flotilla was basically supposed to end its journey right after I recorded it, right after I recorded the episode, so I couldn't really go into it on that particular moment. But basically, it's a continual ship that, it's not the same ship, but it's a group of people who continually go to Gaza to try and bring aid to them because, currently Israel's got a little blockade over Gaza because they like to kill the Gazans, so it's they have to get the aid through. So, and this one was a very interesting one because it included Greta Thunberg, which put a lot of eyes on this Pacific Freedom Flotilla and, made a lot of Western media magically decide that they hate Greta Thunberg, which many people actually were interested. Greta Thunberg actually doing this is actually really good and really amazing for multiple reasons. But one of the big things that's interesting about it is that many people were afraid about what Greta Thunberg would be. People were, when Greta Thunberg first came around, I remember a lot of people on the left were kind of a little confused. They knew that she was a climate activist, but they didn't know, how really into it she was. They were wondering if this was going to be just a thing where it's she's going to support, of course, the easy causes, but when it comes to hard causes, then she's going to start magically going away. It's a similar thing with a lot of prominent actors and stuff. A lot of them will be very openly vocal about a lot of things, but then magically when there are things that are arguably way more important than the things that they advocate for, magically it's not a big thing. The one person that really solidified this for me was Alex Hirsch, the creator of Gravity Falls, who's very politically outspoken on a lot of things, but hasn't said a peep about Palestine the entire time that this Gaza genocide has been going on. But, the big thing about the Freedom Flotilla, which is very prominent, is also the fact that it's very common for the Freedom Flotilla to be attacked by Israel. In 2010, 10 passengers of the Freedom Flotilla died because, they were attacked. And earlier this same year, there was a different Freedom Flotilla that was attacked by Israel. Nobody was harmed, I don't think, but they were attacked. And what is interesting is that on June 8th, boats began circling the ship, and Israel obviously intercepted them, which came after a ton of politicians and media figures in the West started making jokes Greta Thunberg, I hope you can swim. It's yeah, cool. And we're supposed to somehow pretend these guys are the good guys? And a lot of people pointed out the fact that this is a very obvious war crime, considering they entered international waters, which are international waters. You're not supposed to attack on international waters because it's not how it works. And the excuse that Israel gave is they were trying to go into Israel. No, they weren't. They were trying to go into Gaza, which you claim you're not occupying. And yet somehow you're claiming that going to Gaza is the same thing as going into Israel. That's interesting. And what ended up happening is, of course, people who were on the Freedom Flotilla are pointing out the fact that they were tortured by the Israeli soldiers. Literally, Dr. Baptiste Andre, who was also on board, alleges that Israeli authorities mocked the passengers and abused them by deliberately depriving passengers of sleep, including Thunberg, which comes after they made this whole spiel about doing a photo op where we're giving them water and food. That's so nice of us. That's so generous of us. While we literally prevent the Gazans from getting all the food and water that was on the Freedom Flotilla. And they basically gave them a choice to they gave them a document that basically saying yeah, you were trying to go into Israel, you committed a crime, but we're gonna let you go. And a couple of the activists, including Thunberg, signed the paper, but then there were a lot of other people who didn't. One of the big ones was Rima Hassan, who was a member of the European Parliament, who was kidnapped by Israel and held in detention for multiple days. And yet somehow Israel's going to still pretend, no, we're the good guys, we swear, we're the good guys, we swear. Now, one of the big things that is very, very interesting to me, really, was, this is when, this whole thing is like interesting and of course a war crime, and Israel deserves every single punishment that fucking comes to them. But the point is, one of the big things that is very interesting to me on this issue is the fact that Israel picked the weirdest. Well, I don't think this is. I'm not sure if this is intentional, but this is very weird that this happened. So Israel decided, for some reason, to do this raid on the Freedom Flotilla with everybody watching them, like committing multiple war crimes of them invading a boat that they had no reason to invade and trying to hurt the people on the boat that had no reason to be hurt. They chose to do that on the 58th anniversary of the USS Liberty attack. For those who don't know, on June 8th of 1967, a U.S. spy ship was floating around near the waters of Egypt and Israel during the Six-Day War, and it was supposed to monitor communication between the two states. And then, magically, Israel just decided, despite the fact that the ship was clearly identified as an American ship, it had an American flag on it, it had measures on it, like it had words written on it that say explicitly that it was an American ship, and explicitly there's audio recordings of Israel, of the people in Israel who were in charge of this attack, explicitly identifying the ship as an American ship. Israel just decided randomly to start bombing the ship and trying to kill all the passengers, killing 34 people on the boat for quite literally no fucking reason. Like, genuinely, it's just the strangest thing. Like, I tweeted this the day of. It's like, hey, remember how 58 years ago, like, Israel, like, bombed a fucking, like, U.S. ship for no reason? And then some, like, Zionist account, like, replied, basically, oh, you see, it was mistaken identity. It's like, oh, my bad. Israel thought that it was a ship of the country that they were illegally invading because they exerted their own independence? Huh. You could have fooled me. Like, dude, I know what the Six-Day War was about. It was when Egypt wanted to nationalize an industry that they liked, and then Israel said, you can't do that because we claim that as ours. Like, wow, that clears it all up, my friends. But I'm sure that nothing else happened with Israel. Oh yeah, Israel decided to randomly start bombing Iran. Now, this comes after America was allegedly trying to negotiate with Iran to try and bring peace or whatever, and try to, like, fix the nuclear problems, which, this is the thing, I didn't buy that at all. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, there were, like, multiple weeks where this was going on, I just didn't cover it on the channel, because it's just like, dude, I don't believe it. Donald Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal. The first thing he did when he got into office, the first time, was pull out of the Iran nuclear deal, and the last thing he did when he was in office was he bombed Soleimani. He wants to go to war with Iran. That was one of the big reasons why I was a huge advocate for his loss in the 2024 election. Because it's unequivocally what is going to happen is that if he's president, there's going to be war with Iran. That is a fact. And sure enough, what is happening right now is that after Donald Trump has been talking to Iran, claiming that we're trying to bring peace to Iran, magically, Israel starts attacking Iran. And remember, this comes after Donald Trump explicitly stated that Israel should start attacking Iran because of their nuclear arsenal that they're building. Now, people were trying to say, like, oh, well, maybe it's different, because, like, very early on in the administration, they asked questions like, hey, Israel wants to go to war with Iran. Do you want to go to war with Iran on behalf of Israel? And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. But he stipulated that he wasn't going to do it specifically for Israel. He said that if he wanted to do it on his own, he'd still do it, but that he wouldn't do it on, quote-unquote, on behalf of Israel. And, of course, he doesn't believe that he's going to do it on behalf of Israel because he thinks that he's top shit. And, of course, obviously, there's some people even very early on when this attack happened, there were some people who were trying to claim, like, oh, well, you see, this is different. Like, Marco Rubio literally posted on Twitter, basically, like, look, this is bad. Israel took unilateral action on Iran. This is a terrible attack. We need to calm down, try to resolve this, because we were trying to do this peacefully. Then Donald Trump went to Truth Social and said that, yeah, I take full credit for this, even going so far as to state that Iran needs to accept a deal with the U.S. to prevent another attack. And yet somehow we're supposed to be surprised when Iran pushes to get a nuclear arsenal? Like, in the most genuine sense, like, yeah, of course Iran wants fucking nukes now. Like, if they didn't want nukes before, they definitely want them now. And that's the point. That's the point. The point is, they're trying to goad Iran into doing something. To the point where, like, Iran is starting to fight back, and then Israel is claiming that they're fucking victims. Like, oh, that's so sad. How dare this happen? It's like, you attacked first. You attacked first. Iran is fighting in self-defense. That is literally what is happening. Of course Iran wants nuclear weapons. Israel has nuclear weapons that they refuse to acknowledge exist. So Iran, of course, wants to give themselves nuclear weapons so that they can have an advantage if there were to be a war going on, or at the very least use it as a deterrent. Of course that's what's going to happen. And despite they briefly reneged on that when they were like, hey, okay, so America, they were worried about America, possibly going into war. Because this thing, they're afraid of America and Israel going to war in Iran, which is the thing that they have desperately been fighting for years. There are news reports and articles from 1992, where Benjamin Netanyahu is explicitly stating Iran is going to have a nuclear weapon in 1999. And then there's video footage of him at the UN in 2012, literally saying the exact same thing, except saying, oh, it's going to be multiple years future. And then again, they're supposed to be confused, like, wait, hold on, what? Iran doesn't like us? Huh. Who would have guessed? Who would have fucking guessed? America destabilized, again, America and Israel have been just waiting desperately to get Iran to a situation where they feel like they're trying to goad Iran into an attack. That's what's happening. That's what they've been doing for years. So randomly the US gets involved and deposes the fucking secular Iranian government, and then replaces them with a far right fanatical one, and then magically starts giving them money to work around and become come on, dude, it's just so obvious to anybody who does any research into this. That's just. But one thing I guess I'll say, I'll just say this right here, right now, because I'll say it here and I'll say it forever. I am not going to war with Iran. I am not going to a country that I don't know to slaughter people that I've never met for a man I didn't vote for on behalf of a nation that I fucking despise. It's just insane. Just insane. That's not happening. Anyways, with all that going on, let's see what the Democrats are up to. Because I'm sure the Democrats are putting all of their focus and effort on the most important issues. They've gotten rid of David Hogg as their vice chair. Bravo. Just brilliant strategy. Sure, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have said nothing about this. Ken Martin has not denounced this. Jane Cleave haven't said anything about this. But they need to make it so that David Hogg doesn't get to be the vice chair. And what I fucking hate is the just blatant revisionism of the history that's going on. Because I've seen people, even because I was briefly followed by Jane Cleave, that fucking bitch. I don't care about her. She's a loser. She's an insane loser. I don't give a fuck about her. But she briefly followed me because I was speaking positively about Ken Martin, which I fucking regret everything. To all the people who I pressured to fucking support Ken Martin, I'm sorry. This guy's a fucking spineless coward bitch. She's absolute insanity. Dude, that leaked call, because there was a leaked call, allegedly, somebody who they're claiming is David Hogg leaked a call that he was having with David Hogg. Basically, you put me in a tough position, David. I don't even want to be DNC chair anymore. It's you are the leader of the Democratic Party, and you're crying because a 25-year-old guy is saying, hey, maybe we should not wait for our fucking, octogenarian people to die of brain cancer before we actually do anything. We're all sitting here being spineless cowards. Maybe let's actually do something. And Kim was David, you're out of here. Because that's the thing. One of the big things that they're trying to do is they're trying to pretend oh no, you see, this is actually, because I didn't believe that bullshit for a second. They said the reason why that they're doing this is because they didn't follow the mandate of fucking whatever bullshit Interpol thing that they say. It's basically they're trying to be look, you see, affirmative action makes it so that we have to have a certain number of female people on the board, and we have a certain number of male people on the board, blah blah blah. But it's dude, the DNC vice chair, 2 men one woman one. What and Jane Cleave technically counts as another DNC vice chair. So it's literally half and half. What fucking Interpol are you even discussing? You have a black gay man, you have a straight white dude, you have some random woman I don't know or care about, and then you have Jane Cleave, who's also a white woman. But notice how this didn't come up until David Hogg said that he was going to spend money to try and make it so that the Democrats find new people to win in deep blue seats. Like, again, he compromised with the DNC and said, like, look, I'm not going to go after swing seats. You guys can take full advantage of the swing seat areas. And he didn't even go so far as to, like, do it for an ideological reason. He didn't say that he was doing it to, like, back progressives. He didn't say he was doing this to back leftists. He said that he was just doing this to, like, he didn't even necessarily say that he was doing it to, like primary, like, old people. He was basically saying he was just going to go in deep blue seats that he felt needed to have a new member of Congress to represent them. Ones that were, like, he's like, no more backbenchers. We're going to be all frontbenchers. And the Democrats said no. Because that would imply the Democrats need to get off their fucking ass and do anything. And Ken Martin had the fucking, like, balls to release a statement to be like, I commend David for his years of activism, organizing and fighting for his generation. And while I continue to believe he's a powerful voice for the party, that fucking bitch loser. Insanity. You're a bitch. You're a baby coward. I feel immense shame for even considering the fact that you could have possibly been any different than any of the bullshit cowards who run the DNC. Now, to be clear, I don't even like David Hogg. I don't even fucking care about David Hogg. I don't like him. I don't care about him. I don't care. But the fact that even this guy is too much for the Democratic Party is insane. The fact that this is the same party that is somehow turning around to try and blame Tim Walz for the failure of Kamala Harris is insane. Like, for real. At this point, yeah, I mean, at this point, like, literally what else is there? Because it's just like, Dems, you keep failing. Why do you guys keep being stupid? And this is what's going to happen. They're going to get a short-term boost in the midterms. They're going to think that this is the exact strategy they need to do. They're going to do the same thing over and over and over again. And then we all die because the world is going to go to shit because the fact that the Democratic Party is still just trying to do the absolute, like, no, they're not even doing the bare minimum. They're not even doing the fucking bare minimum. Like, these guys have less balls than Hadash Tal does 10 times more than the American Democratic Party, and Hadash Tal is never going to be in a position where they're going to fucking win anything in Israel. The Democratic Party acts like they have one member of Congress. The Canadian Green Party has more fucking balls than the Democratic Party here. The Democratic Party literally just lost multiple votes because many Congress members of theirs died because they didn't, like, even remotely tell them, fucking retire. And the Dems are literally just be like, yes, all of you dying octogenarians, please run for another term. Jerry Connolly, literally, they're like, Jerry Connolly, it's your turn now. That's him dying of brain cancer. And it's like, yep, it's your turn, Jerry. Let's go, Jerry. Let's go, man. That joke was in poor taste. Shut the fuck up. I don't give a shit. Dude, I don't care. Dems deserve everything that's coming to them in the next fucking, like, 10 years of their fucking, like, absolute travesty failure. I don't care. But isn't the world gonna go to shit? Yeah, we deserve it. We deserve it. The fact that the Dems refuse to accept that a majority of their electoral base is literally just like, we hate Israel, and they're still just being like, we need to pray for Israel after they brutally murdered a bunch of Iranian children. We need to pray for Israel. The fact that we live in that world is just, no. Dems don't deserve it. Like, Dems are gonna get what's fucking coming to them. And it's like, it's already happening. It's already fucking happening. Representative LaMonica McIver is indicted on federal charges because she literally tried to do her fucking job. She literally tried to do her job as a member of Congress. She said, hey, let's go investigate this ICE agency. And then she gets arrested for it. And then Alex Padilla does the same thing. And the same thing happens. Like, look, McIver literally is possibly going to face 17 years in jail for going to an ICE facility and try to get a tour of ICE, and then ICE officers tried to arrest her and Mayor Ross Baraka, and she is going to get punished for it. Alex Padilla got tackled to the ground when he literally asked questions at a press event. And conservatives are going to pretend that these guys are the dangerous ones. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party can't even whip their own party to universally support the cause. Jared Golden, Democrat, literally said that, oh, well, you see, MacGyver and Alex Padilla, they're clearly doing political theater. Shut the fuck up. They're doing political theater. Meanwhile, the dog killer herself literally gets to see, dress in Halloween costumes every fucking day of her life. You guys can't even do that. You guys can't be consistent on shit. You can't be consistent on your own, fucking ideological base. It's insane. Democratic Party deserves to fail. It deserves to fail. Guys, at this point, just do it. I don't care anymore. But the votes could get split in the next election, and we're gonna lose even harder. Yeah, who cares? I don't care anymore. I'm in a nihilist mode now. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore. AIPAC is gonna spend $15 million more to get rid of the fucking 3 Democrats who are trying to do anything in this fucking world, and then Dems are gonna sit down and gargle their cum, and then it's just insane. Literally, the entirety of Democratic leadership needs to leave. Go away. Dig a hole, bury yourself, and never come out. Anyways, let's just move on to the main topic of this video, because honestly, there's no point in discussing anything else. So, the first thing I know what some of you are going to say is, with the title, you're going to say, but what about your intro? Yeah, what about what about it? The intro is meant to explain my ideology broadly in 4 words. It was always meant to do that. Basically, broadly identify my ideology in 4 words. I mean, if you remember the old intro, it used to say, center-left, social democrat, progressive, and, independent. That's what it originally said. And then, of course, it's shifted a little bit recently, especially those first 2 labels, where now it's full-on leftist, socialist, progressive, independent. Independent's the only one that's actually... independent and progressive are the only ones that have remained consistently the same, because those are the only ones that I could honestly say would be consistently the same. But now it's actually kind of shifted a little bit. Originally, it was meant to just kind of be, just broadly... I mean, actually, if you want to be originally, I didn't have an intro. But then I made the intro to sort of just give you, just give you a brief understanding of, the 4 broad tenets of the ideology that I had. I think it was more to explain. I think actually now in retrospect, I am kind of understanding that it has been relatively consistent in regards to how it explicitly identifies myself. You see, the first one is how I would describe my broad placement on the political spectrum. Originally, at one point, it was center-left. Then I called myself left-wing, and now I just use the term leftist because it really wasn't a matter. It really doesn't matter either or. Really, in my eyes. Second would be the economic ideology that I identified with, which it originally was social democrat, and then it became democratic socialist, and now it's just broadly socialist. The next one was sort of my stance on regards to social issues, social policy. I would broadly describe my social policies as, yes, 100% progressive. I'm 100% progressive on regards to social policies. Social progressivism is always based and will always be based. Gay rights? Yes. Trans rights? Yes. Polyamory? Sure. Yes. Black people? Yes. White people? Let's not go there. No, you can't. I can't say that. I can say that I'm half white, so it's not in the places that matter. Not on the outside or anything in that regard. But with the blood test, it's they'll be white in there somewhere. This video is meant to sort of go beyond because progressivism is a term that is rather somewhat I made a whole video about progressivism in the past, which honestly was kind of out of date because I kind of was it out of date? It's one of my more popular videos, so I probably have to rewatch it. I mean, I can actually rewatch it right now and get back to you because it's a really short video. And it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I mean, aside from the audio and visual quality, it's not like that bad necessarily. I mean, there's one example of a progressive politician that probably doesn't count anymore, but like other than that, it's a broadly good video because it explains like at least at a somewhat basic level of what progressivism is, which is kind of what the videos are kind of supposed to be, like sort of like a surface level analysis of like the topic, especially like political ideology videos. They were sort of meant to be like sort of like surface level, like basic baby like research, so you can be like, hey, let's look further deeper into it, because it's a whole that'll be a future podcast in and of itself, because like it's one thing that I kind of want to get into, like the whole spiel about like people who want to, like I don't think anybody does this, but like I want to like dispel any people who want to use my videos as like pure gospel in a lot of these issues. Like, don't do that. But the point is that it gets like the basic idea of progressivism, because like a lot of people use the term progressivism. Like, you know, some people use it for an economic ideology, some people use it for social ideology, you know, whatever. But, like, this is, like, for people who kind of go beyond just using it for either, like, an economic or a social policy. Like, I mean, even, like, using it as an economic philosophy, I'm not sure how accurate that would be, and we'll kind of get into sort of why that isn't necessarily the best way to analyze that. But, like, regardless, let's just get into it. Let's get into it. Like, first, on a first glance, progressivism doesn't sound bad. I mean, like, literally, it says in the name. It's progressivism. People want to progress. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you get to the end of a video game? You progress in it. It's progress good. And yes, on social policies, we're all probably progressive, and it's good. And progressivism can be more than just that. It can be attributed to economics and represent an entire ideology in general. And it can kind of be seen as an alternative label for people on like the broader left side of the political spectrum, you know, usually being a shorthand alternative to liberals and social democrats. Sometimes you can also use it to alternatively with socialists, but like there's enough ideological difference between socialism and progressivism that you could probably, that it's not really the best to use them as interchangeable words. But the fact of the matter is, like, it's the point where de facto progressivism is sort of a de facto middle ground between liberalism and social democracy. Like, so you'd literally be like, liberalism is centered, like, closer to the center of all of them. Then comes progressivism. Then comes social democracy. Then comes socialism. And I guess you could put democratic socialism in the middle of that if you consider them, like, broadly different terms. Now, in most countries, this is not that complicated because most of these groups have their own ideological groupings and ideological parties. Like, you know, in most worldwide governments, you have progressive parties, you have socialist parties, you have social democratic parties, you have communist parties, you have, like, parties that are basically broadly, like, everywhere. But comes a bit of a problem, especially here in the good old US of A, because our political spectrum is so far right that basically every single one of those labels, people from social democracy or liberalism to full-blown communism, can all broadly go under the label of the Democratic Party, which leads to one of the biggest issues of progressivism, and that's the fact that it is way too broad. Like I said, it's a nice label. Most people like progress, so naturally there's going to be a lot of people who claim to be progressive. I mean, if you remember, it's poll comp. Like, I mean, on the thumbnail, and if you go to the poll comp ball of progressive, on it is a umbrella, and there's a reason for that because it's an umbrella term. A lot of people can be labeled as progressive, and it's like, I mean, and there's a lot more to it because like. The progressive era is an era that is very prominent in the United States, where like a lot of social and economic progress happened in the nation. We got the first progressive income tax. We got like other progressive reforms like the referendum and recall. And there are a lot of prominent figures from the era that have been labeled as progressive and other labels as such. And there are a couple of, like, let's look at some of the people. Like, I mean, a lot, like, I mean, literally, if we go by modern day, like, when we analyze the progressive era, a lot of the figureheads of progressivism, there are a lot, but some of the big names that you'll probably think of are William Jennings Bryan, Robert M. La Follette, Woodrow Wilson, Theodore Roosevelt, Eugene Debs, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Margaret Sanger. You know, just a couple of the names. I chose these names for very specific reasons, but like let's those are some names that you probably would agree that would probably be like prominent people in the era of the progressive era. And each of them some people could broadly say, like, yeah, progressive. A very odd choice, because not only do only like 3 of those people actually have used the term progressive. Like, I think the only ones who have actually used those terms to identify themselves, like, I'm a progressive or I represent progressive forces, would be La Follette, Wilson, and Roosevelt. The rest of them do not really identify with the term progressive. Like, if you remember, William Jennings Bryan identified as a populist. Yet pundits of today will call him a progressive. But yeah, whatever. But like, yeah, we can kind of see like general ideological similarities. Yeah, we all know that there are like ideological similarities between them. But there's a bit of a problem, because if you actually look at these guys, there's not only a lot of ideological similarities between these guys, there's also a heck of a lot of ideological differences between them. Debs and Du Bois are, of course, socialists. The rest were anti-socialists, with the exception of Follett. He's not necessarily anti-socialist, but I don't know if he is a socialist. I mean, I personally think he is, but you might disagree with my analysis that he is a socialist. I have my reasons for thinking that La Follette is a socialist, but you know, they're not as concrete as Eugene Debs saying I am a socialist. La Follette, Bryan, Debs, and Du Bois were hardcore anti-imperialists. Meanwhile, Woodrow Wilson and Theodore Roosevelt were the exact opposite and were hardcore imperialists. Now, I know some people might rush to the comments and be like, Woodrow Wilson was an imperialist? Yes, he was. Yes, he was. That's a lie. Anybody who thinks that he's an anti-imperialist of any sense is a fucking liar. Woodrow Wilson was a child of the Confederacy who allowed for massive racial hate crimes under his administration. Du Bois clearly opposed that. And if I remember correctly, La Follette was also one of the first people to kind of like really push hard against, and he was basically trying to push for a like specific, I forget exactly what it was. It was like a very specific like anti-racism bill. I don't remember if it was going to be a ban on lynching or if there was somebody who was going to put a racist bill into record, and then La Follette basically said like, what the fuck, man, why are you doing that? I think it was the latter, actually. Like, there was going to be a progressive bill that was going in the House that was going to, like, do this big economic thing. And then one senator tried to, like, make it so that only white people could get it. And La Follette was like, what the fuck, man? What are you doing? That's not how it works. And Margaret Sanger was a huge eugenicist. William Jennings Bryan was a fierce opponent of eugenics. Now, that's actually an interesting thing. I just wanted to mention this just because I was doing more research. It's like, now I'm actually, because, like, this is actually a funny thing. It's like, I mean, yes, we all generally understand, like, you know, William Jennings Bryan being, like, anti-evolution is cringe and, you know, stupid or whatever. But there's actually one element of William Jennings Bryan opposing evolution that actually is like, okay, that actually makes kind of sense now that I actually hear it. Now, I, like most people in the modern world, accept that evolution is a fact. It is a fact. Now, it is a 100% verifiable fact. But the reason why William Jennings Bryan was like a huge opponent of it was not only due to his theological reasons, but also because he feared that if evolution was a commonly taught, he was afraid that would be used to justify eugenics. But regardless, that's not the point. Like, I mean, my point is, like, despite the fact that there are some ideological similarities between all those people, there's obviously extremely a lot of differences between them. And yet, despite that fact, they're all in the modern day labeled as progressives. There are so many ideological differences to put them in very distinct ideological camps. Of course, Debs is like a very obvious outlier, but like the rest can do that too. Like, do you think that Woodrow Wilson or Theodore Roosevelt would openly court socialists to back them? Like, yes, socialists, I want you guys to join my coalition. No, but even if you don't think that he is one, La Follette did. He openly was like, yeah, socialists, come on board. Let's go, guys. Let's go, man. Let's go. Let's get ready. So maybe he shouldn't be put in the same ideological label as the guy who literally spearheaded the first Red Scare. A similar thing can be said about the modern day progressive movement. Excluding the ones who claim to be progressives but like verifiably aren't, like Hillary Clinton. Like, I mean, like that's one big thing that I was just like, oh yeah, that's very obviously, like, because like that's another problem with that, with like the fact that progressivism is way too broad. It's like we have people like Dianne Feinstein and like fucking Hillary Clinton who claim like, oh, we're progressive icons. Like, you're not. But regardless, that's not the point. But people who are like the ones who use the label and somewhat mean it. Like, there are some people who use the label progressive and actually have somewhat meaning behind it. In the modern day, there are a vast array of people who gladly use the term progressive. And while I could probably chop them all into like various different subgroups and whatnot, broadly, you can divide them into two different factions being solidified by the differences between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Like, two people who are ideologically considered like the big name progressives in the era. Like, Elizabeth Warren was like one of the huge, like when she first came into the scene, she was the big name on campus. And then when Bernie Sanders became very prominent, now all of a sudden he's the big name on campus. But now the problem is, these are two different factions. Warren represents sort of like the broader, like, progressive era of that specific, like, she represents the era of like progressivism that split off from, like, I guess modern liberalism, I guess is the best way you can identify it. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders, of course, has a lot of differences. But, like, the divide really leads into two major differences between these two groups: capitalism and foreign policy. Warren ultimately does not see capitalism as the problem of the modern day system. Bernie Sanders does. And Bernie's also way more critical of U.S. foreign policy than Warren is. Not saying that she is never critical of U.S. foreign policy at all, or that Bernie Sanders is 100% critical of the U.S.'s foreign policy and whatever, and that Bernie Sanders is, like, super, like, hardcore anti-capitalist socialist or whatever. Like, there are, like, a lot of nuances, there are a lot of nuances about them, of course, but again, we're going in somewhat broad strokes. Broadly, Warren is way more in line with the West's foreign policy, while Bernie Sanders is not. With this sentiment sort of trickling down to their broad camps, we have the Squad, who represents the Bernie socialist camp, who has actually drifted a bit. And this is another thing about that. Okay, first the other ones. Not only we get the Squad, but we also got people who claim to be progressives who wanted to be explicitly distinct from the Squad. Like, the Squad is over there, but we're progressives that are different. Like, I don't know exactly if there's a specific term that I can use for them, because, like, it doesn't really matter. But, like, they claimed the title of progressive, but they would say something like, I guess the closest thing that I could say is progressivism with the. I don't know how to word it. I don't know how to fucking word it. I guess I'll just call them progressive liberals. Like, I mean, that's basically what they are. Like, they're basically, like, again, the, like, expansion and the evolution of liberalism broadly. Meanwhile, again, the Squad broadly represents a thing. And that's another thing. They don't just go, they're not just birthed from these two specific people and then just spouse the same thing over and over again. They have also gradually shifted away from that ideological head. Bernie Sanders is, I guess we should just broadly say, Bernie Sanders would probably be broadly considered a labor Zionist. He believes that Israel has a right to exist. He believes that Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state. He believes Israel has a right to defend itself, blah, 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 all that jazz. But he's still very critical of Israel and the policies that they've enacted. Meanwhile, we have people like Rashida Tlaib who is inspired by Bernie Sanders, who is a huge Bernie Sanders supporter, and has openly advocated for a one-state solution. And basically every single person on the down levels of the Bernie camp broadly identify themselves as either extreme, I guess nobody around the bush. I guess most of them would just probably be considered anti-Zionists at this point. Meanwhile, for the faction of the people who would broadly be considered kind of in the Warren camp, ones who we're just progressives who don't necessarily have problems with capitalism. We don't really see a lot of the flaws of capitalism. Western foreign policy hasn't really been that bad. People like Richie Torres, Mondo Jones, John Fetterman, Shruti Thanadar just quickly abandon that and just kind of are now just in the camp of just being pro just West, just being they just shifted they're way more in line with the Democratic Party than Warren is. And it's I believe that Warren is very clearly very much, I think that Warren is a pretty hardcore for the US and stuff, very hardcore in that camp of pro US foreign policy. But even then, again, she's slightly more critical than these guys. They're the rest of these new guys. They've jumped all on board.
But what about Ayanna Pressley, who's inspired by Elizabeth Warren, but then also is more in line with the Squad?
Yeah, whatever. Again, broad strokes. We're going to broad strokes here, people. But stuff like that has kind of really, really hardcore led to one of the big reasons why progressivism isn't exactly as highly respected, to at least me, than it once was. Progressives, much like the liberals of yesterday, will be forced to make a choice. Status quo versus massive change. And ultimately, especially recently, they keep choosing status quo out of the fear of quote-unquote radical socialism. Ooh, scary. Ooh. A lot of Progressive Caucus members voted for a bill denouncing the horrors of socialism. Now remember, this is a caucus that was created by a socialist, and many of the people in that caucus were people who backed like literally, Ro Khanna voted for the bill. He was the co-chair of Bernie's campaign. It's like, oh, I denounce the horrors of socialism. It's like, what the fuck were you doing in Bernie's camp, bro? And another fact, just again with Ro. Ro is one of those Democrats that's actually been trying to be like, hey, maybe we should get Elon Musk to join the Democratic Party and help us out. It's like, are you an idiot? Are you fucking stupid? Are you stupid? Are you genuinely fucking stupid? Like, he rhetorically and literally backed neo-Nazis this year. He did a neo-Nazi salute this year. He questioned the narrative of the Holocaust this year, or I guess last year. I don't know which one he did it, but like he did it one of those 2 years. He literally funded the AFD, a neo-Nazi party, this year. What? And another example of that could be like Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang claimed that he was some sort of progressive. He claimed to support Bernie, and he claimed that he supported a lot of the progressive ideals. Now he's just basically given all of that up to team up with Republicans, and again, possibly team up with Elon Musk, to build whatever the fuck he thinks the Forward Party is going to be. A progressive New York City mayoral candidate, Jessica Ramos, announced that she'd be endorsing Andrew Cuomo, seemingly purely because she doesn't like Zohran Mamdani. Why doesn't she like him? I honestly have no fucking clue. I honestly just don't know. She said like something like, I don't want my mayoral candidates to be like spoon-fed blah blah blah. But it's like, then why are you fucking backing Andrew Cuomo? Mondaire Jones stabbed his own friend Jamal Bowman in the back in order to gain favor for his electoral run. John Fetterman has turned his back against the first Democratic incumbent to back him, Bernie Sanders. Richie Torres. Just Richie Torres. Like, I mean, come on. Brianna Wu went from being a hardcore social justice warrior who supported the cause of every single downtrodden member of society, like, who's literally one of the biggest things, like, everyone is sexist, everyone's Islamophobic, everyone is blah, 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 blah. Now she, like, just fucking hates Muslims and is just, like, spending her entire spiel about hating Muslims and hating black people. Like, right now, she's, like, targeting a fucking progressive incumbent because she's like, why are you... Like, fucking loser. But, of course, I can't forget the classic. We all know who the classic is. Elizabeth Warren. She's made her whole fucking career basically stabbing Bernie in the back since 2016. She endorsed Hillary over Bernie. She ran against him. She smeared him about being a sexist. She chose not to drop out, and effectively killing his campaign on Super Tuesday. And it's just insane. And I'll be real. Another thing that's real. Speaking of Wu, one of the big things that really, I mean, I already didn't really like the whole, like, I was rather, like, already kind of, like, seeing, like, progressivism is kind of, like, lame. Kind of like how it's just, like, yeah, liberalism, that might have been cool, like, fucking, like, 13 million years ago, but, like, dang, that's not really relevant now. But, like, I was already kind of drifting that way, but, like, the thing that really solidified it for me was, of course, Palestine. Because everything's Palestine. In fact, there's very much a term for it. Progressive Accept Palestine. Where people who purport to be massive supporters of things like democracy, minority rights, anti-militarism, religious freedom, you know, people who claim to be like supportive of all the left-wing causes in the world, magically it goes away when it comes to Israel-Palestine, where they at best are silent on the issue, or at worst, openly supportive of Israel and their actions that are the exact opposite of what they want. Israel is quite literally a ethno-religious, settler colonialist apartheid state. Literally everything you allegedly oppose is wrapped up in a nice little section of the Middle East for you to get up and oppose. Yet somehow you're choosing to spend your time to oppose the people who oppose Israel, even as Israel argues against the things you claim to support Israel for. Israel is multicultural. They say, as Israel raids the Al-Aqsa mosques and bans interfaith marriage. We support a two-state solution. They say, as Israel literally actively pushes against Palestinians' recognition as a state and the world scene. even after they quote unquote ended the occupation and plan to do another occupation. Like, not just in doing research in the past, like, I mean, first of all, seeing a bunch of research, doing research in the past and seeing all these, like, cool, like, people who seem like cool progressive figures just randomly be like, oh yeah, 100% supportive of Israel. It's like, what? What? You are, like, a huge, like, you spent your entire, like this is literally like, this person spent their entire political career opposing, like, religious intrusion into United States law. And then the next section will be like, they are a massive supporter of Israel. It's like, well, how does that work? The only way you can actually claim to believe both of those things is to be intentionally lying about what you stand for, which is another thing that I see with these pro-Israel progressives. They are either stupid or just intentionally lying. And at this point, it just 100% is intentionally lying. There's no way that people who claim to be like this well informed on the topic are this fucking stupid on it. There is no way. There is no way. I mean, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that these people would claim to be so informed on a topic, and then yet somehow claim to like just be completely wrong on everything. And seeing a lot of people who purport to be progressives nowadays and then still maintain their support of Israel, it was just super insane. Like, look, if you believed that maybe like 5 or 10 years ago, then maybe, hypothetically, you could possibly have an excuse for it. I mean, it's not the best excuse, but it's still probably, like, I could still consider it an excuse. But again, if you support Israel in the year 2020, in June of 2025, if you are supportive of Israel, then you genuinely are just an ethno-nationalist or carry water for them. You're either a fascist ethno-nationalist or you carry water for them. That is all you are. That is all you are. There is no other way that you can support Israel. I don't care if you have the flag that says you take cock up the ass. That doesn't matter. You're still a fascist. You're still a fascist enabler. That is what you are. Like, and that's just a deal breaker. It's just a deal breaker. You really think, like, if you're going to somehow claim that we're some sort of, like, on the same side of an issue, and then you're going to also claim, like, oh, yeah, I support Israel. No, you're not. If you support Israel, you're not on my side. You're an enemy. You are an enemy. You are not an ally of mine. But I support Medicare for all. You also support the extensive mass genocide of Palestinian children. Fuck you. And I mean it in every offense. I mean this in the most genuine sense. Fuck you. You're a monster. I don't like you. Go away. And if any so-called progressive wants to turn around and then make the claim that, oh, well, we're going to work with these guys and build like some sort of like progressive momentum. No, they are not your friends. They are your enemies. Cenk Uygur, he's like, I love the Palestinian people, of course. And then meanwhile, Brianna Wu's like, hey, can I be part of your little gang? He's like, of course. Fuck you. You do not give a shit about Palestinians. If you're literally just like, let's team up with Brianna Wu. It's like, go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. But we're both progressives. If being progressive means that I have to team up with the same people who want to like fucking murder Palestinian children, rip that label off me, burn it to the ground, I don't care. But arguably the biggest reason why I don't really identify really like why I buy the like really just the title of the video kind of explains enough. Like, why progressivism is enough? Well, replace the first part of the, like, get rid of the first word of that question. Progressivism isn't enough. It's not enough. Like, I mean, sure, cool. Trust busting, environmentalism through regulation, non-interventionism might sound nice and cool. But at this point, we're past the point where those are viable options. Like, it's the same reason why I stopped being a social democrat. It's like, yeah, cool. Maybe in 2018, social democracy could have been a good potential solution, but it's not anymore. It's over. That's not going to work anymore. Notice how there is no more like organizations that quote unquote fight for $15. Like, notice how the organization Fight for 15 has kind of went away. There's no more protests that like Fight for 15 because it's over. It's over. $15 minimum wage is over now. $15 minimum wage is nothing anymore. If the minimum wage was kept up with inflation, it'd be $20+. That is like the most Band-Aid hole. Like, that's Band-Aid on bullet hole situation. It's over. We're past the point where we can go like, well, we could like smidge help. Like, we can like, take a smidge and like fix capitalism a little bit. But it's like, it's over. Like, we can't do that anymore. Like, capitalism is the problem. Like, the abundance movement is trying to do that same thing. Like, the abundance movement is, like, in that same vein of, like, the fucking, like, Warren Dem type people. Like, it's basically a continuation of progressive capitalism. It's known as supply-side progressivism. Its purpose is to be, quote, a policy alternative to the socialist left and the populist authoritarian right. A third way, if you will. And as a way of ushering in new economic conditions that will diminish their appeal. Like, again, it's basically just trying to rebrand both progressivism and liberalism. Like, I've read the wiki page that says, like, their fucking plans, like, what they should do. It's like, dude, that is literally not going to do anything to fix the problems. How in the world would that fix any of the fucking problems? Like, their plans are literally, like, massive deregulation of housing. It's like, yeah, that sure did work before. That's insane that they literally just like, let's do this thing that we stopped doing for a reason. It's the same thing with, like, a lot of things where there's a policy that is implemented, and then, like, after 15 million years of that policy being implemented, people are like, yeah, at this point, why do we need this policy anymore? We're past that point. It's like, no, the reason why we think we're past that point is because we have that policy in the books, you idiots. Like, these guys are choosing to be in an antagonistic role to us. So why should we be on the same road with them? Why should we be in their crowd? Why should we be in their group? The most we should do is try to find the ones that will be more radicalized, that are actually interested in their actual change, and they push them closer to our side, radicalize them. Like, that's one thing, but, like, being their friend? No. I'm not gonna be their friend. I'm not gonna be their ally, because they're not. They're not allies. They're enemies. They spend so much time trying to make sure that we don't have a voice, so why should we do anything to help amplify theirs? Some of you might be rushing to the comments to try and be like, well, I think you're being a little too harsh, and I think you're lumping liberals and progressives a little too close. Well, that's kind of by design. In America, liberal and progressive are borderline indistinguishable terms, as I mentioned before. It's sort of considered a middle ground between social democracy and liberalism, but really, progressivism is basically just an interchangeable word for either of those two ideologies, really. I used to have a poli-sci teacher that really explains it, because he said, like, while there's technically some slight differentials between the two, there really isn't that much difference. And yeah, go to the wikis, and you'll see that most, if not all, the people who are considered ideological progressives are on the list of people who are American liberals. Woodrow Wilson, William Jennings Bryan, Robert M. Follett, George Norris, Hiram Johnson, FDR, Henry Wallace, Paul Wellstone, Elizabeth Warren, William Douglas. That's the point, because they basically got lumped into liberalism, and that's what it is. Like, I mean, I'll be real, like, progressives are kind of like the new liberals now. So it's like, at this point, we should probably just, like, move past them at this point. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click that bell to notify when a future video of mine comes out. And if here's more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.